Ladies and gentlemen, it's time for another round of Mind Your Fucking Business with your host, Jeffrey Klinsman.
And away we go. How are you?
A lot to go with today.
A lot to go with today. Coming to you, as always, from the beautiful, and I emphasize beautiful because it is a beautiful day outside today.
Thank you.
Here of the studios at Undefeated Media here in Bergen County, New Jersey. This is your Mind Your Fucking Business podcast, brought to you, of course, by our good friends at the Bamboozle Project. And with the good weather, I did see the other day they have some of their spring wear MYPB gear up to kind of get you ready for the change in seasons. The clocks go forward this weekend, so we're heading in that direction. You can check out the bamboozleproject.com. While you're there, you always need to use MYPB. Promo code MYPB, and that saves you 25% off. We just save you 25% just because you like us. Yeah. And Bamboozle Project will appreciate that and take 25% off. Send us your question to MYPB do throughout the week or Instagram, and that is remember like here, and that is at Mind Your Fucking Business, all one word. This is episode number 108, Ciento Ocho on the Spanish dial. So we appreciate you tuning in today. You're using the SAP feature if you want to listen to Spanish. Sí. And good. That's about the extent of my Spanish. And you can check the audio feed at any time on Spotify and iTunes and YouTube. And if you want to see the video feed, you can always find that on YouTube. So nice. There we go.
Beautiful.
So a lot going on. Last week, I felt like I came in here, and I don't know if it was like my ADHD brain. There was just so much stuff going on that I was on overload. And I even today, I was coming here this morning. I thought to myself, there's still a lot going on, but it's not as much as last week. So I'm kind of thankful for that. We told you when we were on last Tuesday, and it wasn't a secret. It wasn't like, someone's like, oh, well, you said they were going to get Patrick Kane. No, like everyone knew it. But if you did a simple Google search, it was reported by about 50 other people that would have more sources than we would here at Undefeated Media. So you knew it was going to happen, and it did happen later that day. We said it was going to come on Tuesday. It did. It happened shortly before 3 o'clock that afternoon. The news broke that Patrick Kane was officially acquired by the Rangers. Now, if you go back to last Tuesday and the show that we were on, the one thing we all didn't know is we knew Patrick Kane was coming to the Rangers, but what nobody had any idea of, because it was secretive, and of course it wasn't announced, so you had no idea, is what would be going the other way back to Chicago and what would be going out to the Windy City in return. And Ranger fans have to be elated to know that you're getting a Hall of Fame player in Patrick Kane, and only in the end giving up a 2023 conditional second-round pick along with the 2023 fourth-round pick. So, again, and we talk about this almost every year here around the trade deadline, that when you make a move to make a run here, what you cannot give up is a roster piece going the other way in a deal that would be somewhat beneficial for you to make that run. So by giving up draft picks, the Rangers didn't do that. Now, ironically, we didn't know what was going to happen here, but there's a whole clip last week of us going up about the Rangers, trading draft picks. And a lot of people, I was surprised, that commented on it, that they don't have a problem giving up all these future draft picks because you need to strike while the iron's hot, while the window of opportunity is the term we like to use around here. And when that window is open, you need to make a move and go for it. So I don't have any problem with them giving up draft picks because, again, Igor Shesterkin is only going to be in his prime for so long. Same with Mika Zibanejad and all these other players. So the Patrick Kane deal goes through. Everyone's excited. It's showtime on Broadway. Tickets for his first game, which was last Thursday at the Garden against Ottawa, to get in the building on the secondary markets was above $200. Now, that is crazy on a couple of different levels because, A, it's a Thursday night. It's not really like a prime night, not a Saturday night game or anything like that. You're playing Ottawa, who's not a good team. And so he really drove the ticket market up. Now, the Rangers lost to Ottawa on Thursday. They had the lead going into the third period. I didn't think they played bad. What I thought happened, and I saw a lot of other people felt the same, so I wasn't seeing things when I said this, was that Patrick Kane was very, very hesitant to shoot the puck. It was almost like he was trying too hard. He wanted to be in this pass-first mentality. And these sort of things will get ironed out. They will get rectified. Patrick Kane will score a goal in a Ranger jersey at some point. The chemistry here is going to take time. Over the weekend, the only other game that they played, because they're on this kind of like mini break right now, they went and played the best team in hockey on Saturday afternoon up in Boston and lost. Now, I thought they played okay. I had some people say to me, well, you should be very encouraged by the way they played. I wouldn't go there. I wouldn't go to the point either where you would be extraordinarily discouraged by the way they played. I think you take it and you say, okay, they went up against a really good team, the best team in the NHL. And they did okay, and they're playing against that team without Ryan Lindgren, right? Still who's out on the defensive back end. We had a whole clip go up yesterday on Instagram about how good he's been. Everyone seems to agree with that. So you had no Ryan Lindgren in the lineup. You had Keandre Miller still serving. Actually, it would have been his last game of this. Or actually, yeah, his last game of the suspension. So he wasn't there. He will be back, though, on Thursday. So you were down two of your top defensemen, and you're still trying offensively to try and figure out things. So with all this stuff going on, I have to go up to Boston and play that team. It's difficult. I thought they did okay. So why don't we pull up a comment real quick? We'll pull up the first one. And that is Ottawa is the second best record since January 5th. It's not who you play, it's when you play them. It's a very good point. Ottawa is playing well. And they look like if you watch them, and I did feel this, thank you, Chris, and I think Chris may have been the one that mentioned this to me, they look like they're playing like a team trying to make the playoffs. They really do. Their coach up there, DJ Smith, has them playing well. And it was fitting that Derek Brassard had a nice game in his return to the Garden. So, and yes, the other comment, you don't have to put it up, is that Boston is number one in the same time. Yeah. And so here's the thing that worries me about Boston. And I want to talk about this before we bring our guest on in a few minutes. So watching the game Saturday afternoon, and maybe I was me not paying attention the last couple months, I was very surprised at how deep Boston is. Their depth is good. Obviously, they have the best 1-2 goalie tandem in the league with Ullmark and Swayman. Ullmark I think he's like 32-4. It's something unbelievable, his record. And the other thing that has me concerned is how physical they are. They can be physical with you. They can play that type of game. And any NHL fan knows that if you're going to win a playoff series in the spring, or multiple playoff series, hopefully, you need to be physical. So Boston's got it all. If I am the Rangers, here's my wish. Okay. The Rangers are most likely going to finish the 3 seed in the Metro, meaning that the only situation you could play the Boston Bruins in would be the Eastern Conference Finals. So you'd have to get through the first 2 rounds and play Boston. The thing that would maybe give me a glimmer of hope is that Boston, who will probably destroy whoever they play as the lower wild card team, whether that be Buffalo, or maybe Ottawa, for whoever it is, they're going to win. Mm-hmm. But the second round series for Boston is going to be the winner of Tampa and Toronto. Now, Tampa has represented the Eastern Conference in the Stanley Cup Finals the last 3 years. So we do know that Tampa can give them a fight. Mm-hmm. Toronto is very good. I mean, even though they haven't had playoff success, you would like to hope and cross your fingers that when you got to the Eastern Conference Finals and you had to play a juggernaut like Boston, hopefully somebody in an earlier series, particularly the series right before, has taken something out of them.
Absolutely.
Because they are
hopes and dreams.
Because I tell you, when I mean, they have players like Taylor Hall, who's not even in the lineup right now. I mean, the depth that they have now, they traded for last week, and it was a surprise. And I will give Jim Barringer, was one of the first people who was on with us last week. I saw he reported this, was that Tyler Bertuzzi was getting moved from Detroit to Boston, which was a surprise to everyone. But, the funny thing about it is Boston doesn't need Tyler Bertuzzi. And, of course, what happens on the first goal the other day against the Rangers is Bertuzzi with the dump in and bing, bang, boom, and Rangers are down 1-0. So
man,
he fits right in. It's usually the way it works. So, all right, Ranger fans, I opened up on Saturday. I decided, I don't know if you saw this, I decided to open up a Q&A on our Instagram page. You saw this, right?
A lot of cues.
A lot of questions. Maybe a little bit more than I thought, but we appreciate it. Keep them coming. So a lot of questions that came in. And the reason I did this was I felt like the Ranger Nation was on a high of making the Patrick Kane deal, right?
Nothing's going to knock him down a peg.
No. I'm going somewhere here. So the Rangers are on this high of Patrick Kane. He's coming to the Garden. Thursday night is his debut against Ottawa. They lose. They go up to Boston and they lose. So I felt like, from being on the emotional roller coaster, Saturday night, I was going to get, or I guess for 24 hours, because when you put a story up, it's up for 24 hours. Is that right?
Yeah.
So in the following 24 hours, I had a feeling I was going to get a lot of questions of panic, right? Not really like positivity. And man, was I right. So I was. So let's talk about the Rangers right now.
Everyone likes to hit the panic button, man.
Well, if you remember when we had the panic button here in November, that was probably accurate with how bad they were playing. All right, Patrick Kane is going to take some time here. Whenever a player is moved, whenever a superstar player is moved, it takes time to develop some sort of chemistry with the line mates. We know Gerard Gallant. This is not something I like about him, and a lot of you guys out there do not either. But we know Gerard Gallant is very, very comfortable with switching up lines all the time. So you're going to see a lot of combinations until he and the coaching staff feels that there's some sort of spark. Just because Patrick Kane has not scored or really even been that noticeable in the first two games is not a reason for panic. The Rangers are also still playing without two of their top defensemen, right? And K'Andre Miller can play in the offensive zone. Lindgren is more of a defensive defenseman, but K'Andre Miller can make some plays, so you don't have him on the blue line. It's going to take time. This is not the sort of thing, and maybe Ranger fans were spoiled. I thought of this, and I think I said this in a question the other day, that Vladimir Tarasenko comes here and he scores, 20 seconds in his first shift. And that is not the norm when players come to a new team. So relax. Don't panic. It's going to take some time. The Rangers are lucky that they have kind of this mini 4-day break because they need it. They needed to get healthy. They needed to kind of settle down from what's gone on in the last week mentally. I think it's been a mental exhaustion as well. And I think the team needs to try and get healthy. Hopefully Ryan Lindgren is back sooner. One thing that drives you nuts with if you're a fan of a hockey team, and I find it's worse in hockey than any other sport, and you can argue football's up there, but I can't stand this in hockey. You try and get information on how long a player's out or injured, and it's nothing. It's either he's got an upper body injury or a lower body injury. You have no idea. But the Rangers have seemed to said consistently that they think Ryan Lindgren will be back sooner than later. And it seems like the reporters who have been around the team and have seen him walking around the practice facility or Madison Square Garden, he's not in a sling. He's got nothing on his arm. Hopefully he will be back sooner than later. And that is why, again, they can use the rest of these next 4 games, because then they go right back to 3 games in 4 nights. You're going to end up seeing them go up to Montreal on Thursday. And you would like to think, having the break, there should be some fire in them up in Montreal. They'll go to Buffalo from there and then back to Pittsburgh again before they return home. The rain, I don't know if it's a new thing with the NHL. They had the 10 days off in the beginning of February. They have this mini break now. They also haven't been really home a lot. They were out west. They came home for 1 game. So the schedule will settle down as once Thursday gets here. But the Rangers can really use this break here to get healthy, hopefully get Lindgren back, as well as the rest of the guys.
Does that mean that at the end of our schedule going to be a lot more home games?
The Rangers do have some home games at the end. Yeah, they'll make up a lot of home games. They still have the Caps at home. They have the Hurricanes at home again. They'll have some teams coming to the Garden. But the schedule is very difficult. I think I saw somewhere that they have the 3rd hardest remaining schedule of all NHL teams. But again, one thing that you like, and you don't really like to think like this, but I'm going to say it anyway. The Rangers right now have built up a cushion to an extent. Let's not push it, play with fire here. They're going to be the 2 or 3 in the Metro, most likely the 3. So if the schedule's hard, and because they're hard, maybe they give away 4 points that would have had if the schedule was easier, you're still going to be fine.
And you're prepping for the playoffs. You don't want your schedule to be super easy and you get complacent and lazy. Yeah.
And as we know, we've talked about it here for months, the tri-state area, we could be looking at a Devils Rangers first round series 2-3. And that would be, I don't care if you root for the Devils. I don't care if you root for the Rangers. You will get into it because you're going to be around Ranger fans in the area. You'll be around Devil fans in the area. It will be a great series, and a series that I have said consistently, if the Devils play the Rangers in round 1, all the pressure in the world is on the Rangers. All of it. Literally. All of it. Right. So we will see. So we are going to switch gears here, and we're going to bring in our guest. Let's see if we can get him. We'll give him a minute to get situated because I saw he just joined the green room. And we're going to go. We always, we spend so much time here focusing on the Rangers. We also spend a lot of times focusing on the Eastern Conference. So it's nice to get a different perspective because there's a whole other conference of hockey There's a whole 2 other divisions out there in the Central and the Pacific. And there is no team that I have found on the Western Conference. If I'm going to watch a Western Conference hockey game, I want to watch the Edmonton Oilers. Like, it's not even questionable to me of all the teams that are out there. I want it to be Edmonton. So let's see if we can bring in our guest, and that is Jack Michaels. Let's see if we can get him. How are you, Jack?
How are you?
I'm good. How are you?
Good. Are we good?
We are good. This is, let me just say exactly, intro you perfectly. This is Jack Michaels, play-by-play for the Edmonton Oilers on 630 CHED up in Edmonton, Alberta, who is joining us from Boston, I believe, if I'm not mistaken, as the Oilers are out east on an East Coast trip. How are you?
I'm doing well. And, now I'm only a part-time radio guy. So I'm on Sportsnet in Canada quite a bit. So I don't want to claim full radio credit when I'm down to probably 10 or 12 games a year.
Well, you picked one of the good games, I guess, if you're covering them, and that is to be in Boston, because that game on Thursday night will have a lot of.
Well, that'll be on TV though. I won't be on the radio.
Okay. Well, you'll be in the building in TD Garden. I'm assuming,
yes,
right?
And locally, it's Ched. I just, I gotta, you kind of build it up as though it'd be a perfect intro, and I'm just helping you out, bud.
Thank you. I appreciate it. So let me ask you.
Hey, you're the one who got me up this early. You can't expect me to. You wanted me to be sharp, so I'm just trying to sharpen you up a little bit.
There you go. Well, I appreciate it. Let me ask you some questions about the Edmonton, and obviously it starts. You have to ask with Connor McDavid. Last night, game-winning goal again, tied at 2 in the third period. He scores the winner. He's got 123 points in 65 games. I was telling guys in the studio here yesterday, or before we started, that I was looking up his stats last night, and I saw that, and I said it had to be a typo. So I went to another site and realized it was accurate. I don't even know what to even ask you about him because there's no flaws in his game. Is there one thing, since you see him a lot, that he does above all of his other skill sets? What's the most impressive thing about Connor?
Well, I think, first of all, you got to check your website because he's actually up to 54 goals on 124 points. He's passed his career high of 123 last year. And the reason I bring that up is he's just so sensational, you can't even keep track of his points. He's got 12 goals and 27 points in his last 11 games. He's got more points since the All-Star break than 77% of the league has all season long. He has more points than anyone since the beginning of the 2013-14 season, and he didn't make his debut until October of 2015, and he missed 33 games that year. So, I don't know what kind of superlatives you want me to bring to the table. All I can tell you is that, in my opinion, what he does that sets him apart from anyone else is make plays with the puck at top speed. There are guys who can get to McDavid's top speed, I believe, or at least close. Nate McKinnon's on that list. But in terms of maintaining the hands, the head movement, and incorporating anything you'd think that he could do while sitting in a chair, skating at the speed he does, that's where he is a next step player. That's where he becomes a video game. That's where he becomes some guy that you get so jaded every night that you sometimes forget to magnify the accomplishments he's already achieved and that he will achieve. We're seeing the best season in the league since 95-96 and Mario Lemieux. We're going to see a guy who reaches that pantheon that only 2 players have reached in the history of the game, Wayne Gretzky and Mario Lemieux. Connor McDavid is about to join them.
So one of his line mates, Leon Draisaitl, I have found that.
Oh, he's only an occasional line mate now. Only an occasional line mate. Like not often this year, to be honest with you. They've been broken up for most of the year. They play shifts together, but not, I wouldn't say line mate. Sorry, just jumping in there. Again, so you wanted me to be a full participant.
No, I like it. We want 100% Jack. We don't want 50% Jack. So 96 points in 63 games. I mean, that also needs to be spoken about because obviously Connor McDavid is getting so much of the limelight up there and deservedly so. But Leon Draisaitl, he's another player that is just an elite player. Talk a little bit about his game, what you like about him.
Well, he's kind of the power forward, the Malkin figure. If you're looking at a recent great tandem in Crosby and Malkin, he's about 6'2", 215 pounds. He can change speeds on a dime, and he is impossible to get the puck from him on certain nights. He just becomes this power forward that no one can deal with speed. He has the best one-timer. I mean, the most efficient one-timer in the game. It's not a one-timer that you necessarily think of because he only gets it about probably 6 inches off the ice surface. But he's got the most one-time goals in the league. He's far and away the most prolific power play goal scorer in our game today. I think a lot of people are still thinking, well, it's Ovechkin, but the numbers, I'm sorry. I mean, Leon Draisaitl has scored 50 power play goals in the last 2 seasons. I mean, and that's just on the power play. He is a lethal guy from impossible angles. His office is beneath the right face-off dot, going all the way as far as the goal line. He can score from any angle. He scored a backhander on Connor Hellebuck the other night that had to be seen to be believed. He's a tremendous face-off guy. He's the guy, if the Oilers are down 2 men, that is the workhorse up front. Leon Draisaitl on any other team would be considered, maybe the best player in the game. But Connor McDavid is there. I mean, Connor McDavid has a 28-point lead on Leon Draisaitl, but Draisaitl is comfortably in second place in the league in scoring. Yeah, he's got 2 50-goal seasons on his resume. That's 1 more than Austin Matthews and 2 more than Nathan McKinnon. I mean, people don't realize that this guy has a very real claim to being the unquestioned number 2 player in the league. And again, like you said, if you're in the Eastern Conference, you might not know much about him. He's a tremendous hockey player.
So obviously the goals are coming to plenty up there in Edmonton. Goaltending, when you look at Jack Campbell, Stuart Skinner, I didn't realize Stuart Skinner is from the Edmonton area. Is that right? He grew up there? He's an Edmonton product?
Born and raised, the youngest of 9, developed by the Oilers. He's a real success for a team that has not had much success in the later rounds of their draft pool. He's a 3rd-round pick in 2017, and they got Vinny Desharnais, a 7th-rounder, a couple years later out of Providence College. Those guys have been real late-round draft success stories for Edmonton. And again, if you look back at their last 15 years, that's been a huge hurdle for Edmonton, in terms of not having a lot of depth at draft positions. So it's been a real nice story.
So one of the early round picks, Doug, if we could put up the comment, we just had a listener pull in a comment, but that's how Ryan Nugent-Hopkins, the bottom one, is having a good season as well. It seems to me that Ryan Nugent-Hopkins every year, I hear as an Eastern Conference team gets mentioned in trade rumors, and he's still been there. Talk a little bit about Nugent-Hopkins in the year he's having up there.
Well, he's had 3 goals, 7 points, and a fight in his last 4 games, and he walloped Justin Hall, of Toronto. And Justin Hall, last I checked, I believe is 6'3", 215 pounds. And Ryan Nugent-Hopkins is 6'1", and maybe 195 on a good day. He's having a career year, as is Zach Hyman. I mean, Edmonton is not just McDavid and Draisaitl lugging an average team to the finish line. I mean, they've got some real threats. And Evander Kane hasn't played virtually all season long. I mean, that's a hell of a top 6. Ryan Nugent-Hopkins is doing everything. And he's the longest tenured Oiler, as you mentioned. He's a 12-year guy. He's not going anywhere. I don't think there was ever a real situation where trading Nugent-Hopkins was seriously considered. He's beloved in the community. And this year, he's put it all together. I mean, people forget when Ryan Nugent-Hopkins came into the league, he might have been 178 pounds. He was 18 years old. And at that time, now you were talking about the Western Conference and how, some of your viewers might not be aware of what the conference is all about and the two divisions. It's much weaker than it was when Nugent Hopkins broke into the league. When he broke into the league at 18 years old, he had to deal with the Sedins, Ryan Kessler, Anjay Kopitar, Jumbo Joe Thornton, Ryan Getzlaff. Those were just some of the Western Conference centers he saw on a nightly basis. Fully grown, 6'4" guys who were perennial all-stars in the league. And that's what he was indoctrinated into. And over the years, he's really, kind of rounded out the corners of his game, and he's comfortable with who he is. Is he Connor McDavid? No. But he should not be underestimated as a first overall talent or pick. He's as good as those guys are on the power play. The power play, to some degree, which is a record-setting power play and the best in the history of the league over a 4-year period, to some degree, the power play runs through him. He can play with great players, and this year he's proven he's a great player himself. He's in the top 10 in the league in scoring.
Okay, so all these goals going into the playoffs this year, do you think with Campbell and Skinner, one of them can kind of carry them over the hump and get them through the Western Conference into the Stanley Cup Finals?
Well, they'll have a better chance to do it in the Western Conference than they would in the East.
We know that really well.
Yeah, that is, that's a real fact. I think Edmonton, Colorado, Dallas, the three real contenders in the Western Conference, they don't have to navigate, 2 rounds of heavyweight big boy hockey. And if you're a 3 seed in the East, you're going to have to navigate 3. The 2 wild card teams I'm not impressed with in the Eastern Conference. I think they'll make a quick exit. But the top 6 is a real threat. In the West, all you have to do is probably win one, really hard series. And I'm not demeaning the West. It's going to be competitive, but they're not on the same level as the Eastern Conference teams. Stuart Skinner is a rookie. I mean, that's what he is. Now, he played in the NHL last year, but he's a rookie. He's won 3 in a row. I mean, can they do it and come out of the West? I think they can, but it's a very real question you bring up. Will Edmonton have enough goaltending and defense to win? I think the Oilers made a highly underrated, especially out east, acquisition in Matthias Ekholm. I don't think anyone, including Eastern Conference clubs, brought in anyone who's going to be as valuable to his team as Matthias Ekholm is. And I know you're thinking, well, wait a minute, what? I'm telling you, he does so much for Edmonton in just a 4 or 5 game period. He stabilized the left side. He allows someone other than Darnell Nurse to play the top line night in, night out. He can play against anyone, including McDavid. And then you also have Brett Kulak, who had been playing top 4 minutes, now slotted correctly in the third pair, where he's a real shutdown guy. You've also balanced out Evan Bouchard, who's kind of taken over the mantle for Tyson Barrie on the power play and stabilized his performance because he's only in his second full season. And as a partner with Matthias Ekholm, you're already starting to see Bouchard's game pick up to the degree that it was last year when he played alongside the veteran Duncan Keith. So Ekholm has slotted everyone correctly and rounded out what was really an average defensive core and elevated them to at least above average. But it is, again, that's the key for Edmonton. Not scoring goals, but keeping pucks out of their net. If they don't do it, they won't represent the Western Conference. If they do, they deserve to be considered as much of a favorite as anyone, including defending champion Colorado, to represent the West in the Stanley Cup final.
So it's actually funny you'd mentioned that. If you could put the last comment up, we had someone write in a minute ago thoughts on the Ekholm trade. Then you answered it perfectly. So you alluded to one thing that we talk about here on the show a lot, which is the strength of the Eastern Conference. I think we're kind of a New York Ranger based podcast, so not thrilled at the moment to be in the Eastern Conference. The Rangers, as it stands right now, would have to get through.
Played this year.
I'm
How
sorry.
about that? How about for entertainment? I mean, if you wanted to see a great Stanley Cup final, could you
Both
pick a
those
better
games,
final
yes.
than the Oilers and Rangers? How about the
Yeah.
two games those teams played this year?
Yeah, the Thanksgiving weekend, the Rangers. So true story, the Ohio State-Michigan game was on that Saturday at the same time. So I had third period. I said, you know what, we'll flip back and forth. This Ranger game's over. Obviously, I was wrong on that. And then the Friday night game up in Alberta a couple of weeks ago, it looked like, I mean, Igor was awful in the first period, and that game turned around.
Bad.
I did. But I will say this, if you're a betting man, the way these two teams are playing, bet the over if you look what happened in those first two games. So the Rangers would have to go through probably the Devils and then, Carolina and then Boston. When you look at the Eastern Conference, is there a team that who's the best team suited to give Boston a fight?
Well, that's a very good question. I mean, I think there's certainly some contenders. I think the Rangers will beat Jersey in the first round. I really do. I don't think the Devils, and quite frankly, I don't think the Maple Leafs are well suited for Boston at all. I think the teams that could potentially take Boston down are the New York Rangers and the Tampa Bay Lightning. Tampa, through sheer playoff experience, grit, knowing and finding a way to win close series. And the Rangers, because if Shesterkin gets locked in, he's probably right there with Vasilevsky. And again, I mean, the numbers wouldn't suggest they are right now. But Shesterkin is a guy who can be dangerous in the playoffs in terms of stealing a series against Boston head-to-head, especially when you consider this. Linus Ullmark is an unquestioned Vezina Trophy winner this year, and he has a real argument as the MVP. And I say that as the Edmonton Oilers broadcaster who would tell you that Connor McDavid is far and away the best player in the league, and there isn't anyone close. But that doesn't necessarily mean he's the MVP this year. Edmonton is tracking for about the same record, while Boston is going to join the 77 and 78 Canadiens and the Lightning 4 years ago as three of the best teams in the history of the NHL regular season. But he's never won a playoff game. Linus Ullmark has never won a playoff game. So, in fact, last year it was Swayman who kind of carried Boston into a Game 7 against Carolina. So there's a question there. I mean, there's a legitimate question. And that's the one, I think, subtle nick in the armor potentially of the Boston Bruins. And I think the Rangers, with their explosiveness offensively, they're the one team that you could say has a top six every bit as potent as Edmonton's. They're the one team that if they get hot, they can have an offense that can deal with a team like the Oilers, and they're the one team with an offense that could overcome a talented team, a vastly superior team to anyone else in the NHL, and the Boston Bruins, that has an unproven goaltender when it comes to postseason competition. So if you're a Ranger-based podcast, I'm not just saying this because that plays to your audience, but I do think the Rangers are a viable threat to take Boston down.
The other series in the first round that I think is fascinating would be Tampa and Toronto. Is this the year Toronto finally gets out of the first round? What would be your prediction if that series started today?
Well, I mean, if it started today, I don't think either club is playing well. I don't have a pick if it started today. Neither team is playing very well right now. Toronto's beat up. I mean, Tampa might be able to limp past them. I mean, I don't think Tavares played. O'Reilly's on the IR. The Maple Leafs are really kind of struggling to fit in all the new pieces they acquired at the deadline. I mean, they turned a third of their roster over. For that matter, I mean, the Rangers, when I've seen them, again, a little disjointed, still figuring it out, still getting on the same page with the addition of Patrick Kane and Vladimir Tarasenko. In fact, if anything, I've been surprised that Kane and Panarin, it's going to take them a while to pick up where they left off. I would cast a very shaky vote for Tampa Bay right now, but the Lightning are in a period of their season where they're not quite at the finish line, so they know the playoffs aren't right around the corner, and obviously the blossom of a new season is long gone. They've been hearing the same voice for a decade, and they're a little worn out. And John Cooper knows that, and that's why I think he can still navigate them through another playoff crucible. He's trying to back off. He's told me as such. He's told other people as such, I'm sure, as well, that he knows this team has its limits on what they want to hear from him and what they want to hear in terms of the importance of the regular season. But if there's going to be a year where Toronto would have a chance to beat him, you'd think it'd be this year. They certainly had him on the ropes last season. Having said that, there's no way I'd take them.
I like that. I like that. Yeah, I mean, history does count for something. All right, before we let you go, I'm going to ask you the $1 million question. Who do you think's coming out of the East? Who do you think's coming out of the West? And who do you think's winning the Cup?
I think Thursday I think Thursday will be a Stanley Cup playoff preview. I really do. I think it's going to be Edmonton and Boston, and I think it's the third time they're going to meet in the history of the Stanley Cup final. And as voice of the Edmonton Oilers, you're really kind of putting me on the spot. So as a result, I'm going to pretend the podcast suddenly experienced some technical difficulties, and I'll just leave you with an Oilers Bruins final. How's that?
I like it. Well, I appreciate you joining us. I hope in your time up there, you can go check out Mike's Pastries and all the good stuff up in Boston and the North End. That is Jack Michaels. Come back and see us again. Thank you so much.
Pleasure being on with you guys. I think is it my second appearance?
First.
This is my first appearance. I feel like we've chatted before, like a lot.
We'll you know what we'll do? That will just give us more reason to do a second appearance. We'll get you back on when you're out east again.
All right. Sounds good, fellas. Take care.
Thanks, Jack. That's Jack Michaels with the Edmonton Oilers and Sportsnet. So,
nice.
Kind of cool. Kind of cool to hear a different perspective. We focus a ton on the Rangers here, and rightly so. We like that. I can see all the questions you guys have up on the screen that we like to focus on the Rangers, but it's good to get a different perspective sometimes. Good to hear that. Yeah. So speaking of different perspectives, shifting gears.
Oh, yeah.
The New York Jets.
That's why I'm wearing green.
That is where you're wearing green today.
Lots to talk about.
Good. Lots to talk about. We talked about 2 weeks ago. We had a debate here, you and I, about should the Jets go down the road of signing Derek Carr, free agent, or try and make a trade for Aaron Rodgers, or explore maybe another option that's out there, maybe something like trading for Lamar Jackson, something like that. I took the side that said, I think they're better off with Derek Carr. And it seemed, and I don't know this for a fact, but we also put a poll up on our Instagram page, and more people voted for Derek Carr. Therefore, Derek Carr was the winner. Nice. That's usually how votes work. Yeah. Yesterday, Derek Carr signs with the New Orleans Saints, taking him off the table. Now, the New York Jets, as the Jets can do, and only the Jets can do sometimes, really now look like they are, I don't want to say backing themselves into the corner, but they're looking like, hey, our sights are set on Aaron Rodgers. We value Aaron Rodgers higher than Derek Carr, which certainly they're entitled to do. They're entitled to have their opinion. And now we'll have to work out some sort of deal with Green Bay to acquire him to have a quarterback. What do you are as is? I don't want to say as a Jet fan. I'll say this: you root for the Jets. You do support them.
Yes.
Do you knowing where you are today?
Yes.
Do you want Aaron Rodgers under center in Week 1?
So there's a lot to go into this. One, you're going to have to give up more now because they know they're backing you up into a corner. So when there was Derek Carr on the table, you probably would have had to give up less. Not saying you would have to give up nothing, but you probably have to give up less. Derek Carr was probably the better option because you have to give up nothing and you can keep your great defense and your great team. Then all you need is that missing piece, which is the quarterback. Aaron Rodgers doesn't know what he wants to do. And what I foresee happening in Jets fashion is they're going to get nobody.
Yeah, you can see that.
Get nobody.
I to me, and we've said this here in the 3 years we've done this podcast when we talk football, I can't stand Aaron Rodgers off the field. I understand he's a good player on the field. There's no debating his talent, but I cannot stand the attitude. To me, this guy, if he were to come to the Jets, would get absolutely destroyed by the New York media. I mean, and he won't even he had trouble handling the media in Green Bay, Wisconsin. And I don't mean that as a disrespect to Green Bay, Wisconsin, because I'm sure it's a nice little city up there in Wisconsin. This is not Green Bay, Wisconsin. So we'll put up a question that just came in, and that is what does Carr getting $100 million mean for other free agents like QB Daniel Jones, Lamar Jackson? Yeah.
What is that per year?
I think it was 4-year deal.
Yeah. So what is that?
That's like 30. Well, let's see. 35. 35. Yeah.
150.
37 and a half.
37 and a half.
So you may have just driven up the price of Daniel Jones, which is a good question from Brian, by doing that, setting the market.
I mean, to what? He's going to get 40? Like what Derek Carr's a good quarterback, right? There's market for him. Other teams want him. What do you think? Do you think Daniel Jones is a better quarterback than Derek Carr, first off?
No.
So Daniel Jones shouldn't get more than 37 and a half.
That would be a good way of looking at it. Yes, he should not get more than 37 and a half, but it sounds like, and we've talked about how he fired his agent and hired a new agent, and which is done for one reason, because he thinks he deserves more money than what his other agent he fired thought. He's going to try and get it. But if I'm the Jets right now, I don't know that you want. Well, I guess at this point you don't really have a choice, because you can't get Derek Carr.
You dropped the ball.
You need to get Aaron Rodgers.
You dropped the ball. You should have gotten an answer from Aaron Rodgers before Derek Carr signed with anybody.
Aaron Rodgers here. Again, I mean, we can, and you can save this clip and you can play it back in the fall if I'm wrong, and I would like to be wrong, is going to get literally destroyed and eaten alive by the New York media, and it will be a contentious relationship. It reminds me of a way to throw in a hockey analogy, Ranger analogy too, of John Tortorella when he was here. He couldn't stand Larry Brooks of the New York Post. He just doesn't ever like dealing with the media, and there's no market where the media spotlight is larger than New York.
Yeah.
So I mean, he's also in the second round of he's in the second half of his career easily. You'd have to win now, right? You're not getting Aaron Rodgers and saying you're going for the Super Bowl in 5 years. You got to go for it now, because who knows? He's older. I think he's like 39.
Yeah.
I don't know.
He started off on the wrong foot, because if he made the decision and we made the decision and got him while all the pieces were out, it's like we chose you, you chose us kind of thing.
Yep.
Now Derek Carr's gone. Now there's already a sour taste in our mouth. Like, do you want to play with us or not? You know what I mean? He's on these overnight darkness retreats and trying to figure out what he wants to do.
And you're right with the Jets, where if they don't get Aaron Rodgers now, and you can't sit here and say that you're confident that they will, because it's not just a sign them kind of thing. It's an option.
You got to give up stuff.
You got to give up stuff, right? So Green Bay now knows they're in a leverage situation where, hey, this team needs Aaron Rodgers. So they're not dumb. They're going to sit there and try and get something out of it, which means they're going to drive up the price. Does Lamar re-sign with Baltimore? We'll take one last question before we go for the week. Does Lamar re-sign with Baltimore, or does he get a better deal? I did read this morning that they were negotiating yesterday. I think he's going to stay with Baltimore. I believe, if I'm not mistaken, if he goes somewhere else, it's got to be a sign and trade. It's not just straight up free agent. I don't know that someone's going to want to take him with his knee situation and give up something for him. I think he's going to stay in Baltimore. And also, if he doesn't stay in Baltimore, who else does Baltimore have? Right? Yeah. You're kind of just, it's hard to sell.
I mean, their backup quarterback did a pretty good job of filling in. I mean, he was like another Lamar running around, like doing the same kind of plays. But
who knows?
I think the Jets dropped the ball.
Yep. We will see.
They got spoiled with all their options, and they didn't capitalize. The Derek Carr, you're not giving up anything.
No, I believe that they are able to start trading, if I'm not mistaken, next week. So we probably will have some form of an answer here.
You'll have an answer by Sunday. I heard
really?
In the morning. I heard Aaron Rodgers has to make a decision by Sunday morning.
Okay. Well, stay tuned. Stay tuned to MYPB. We'll give it to you here. That is it for us today. We thank Jack Michaels from Edmonton Oilers play-by-play and Sportsnet. Very cool to hear that perspective. And if you're out here and you listen to us because you're a Ranger fan, the next time the Edmonton Oilers are on TV, you will appreciate watching this team play. I mean, just watching them. Obviously, McDavid is an all-time great, and some other guys that he mentioned, like Leon Draisaitl as well. You will enjoy watching them. That is it for us. The Rangers go back in action 3 and 4 nights starting on Thursday. Again, do not panic over the Patrick Kane first 2 games. It's going to take some time, and Jack Michaels even said it as well. We thank the Bamboozle Project for their sponsorship, as always, of us. Go check them out at thebamboozleproject.com. Use promo code MYPB. Save yourself a whopping 25%. And that is it for us. We will talk to you next week.